Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Manchester City proved that they're here to win once again. They beat Arsenal, but how did they do it? Where did Arsenal go wrong? And can Manchester City get any better? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Manchester City beat Arsenal. So Manchester City's quest to successfully defend the Premier League title began with a win at Arsenal. In today's video, we're going to discuss what Manchester City did right, how both teams pressed, and the positives from this Arsenal performance. When we do break it down, we got Manchester City in a 4-3-3, Raheem Sterling up front, Mahrez and Aguero in midfield. You have Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, and Fernandinho. Arsenal and more of what should have been a 4-2-3-1, Aubameyang just ahead of Ramsey, out in the wide areas, Mkhitaryan and Ozil, and in midfield, Guendouzi and Xhaka. How did Manchester City get rolling? Well, we have to look at the wider areas and how things have changed. In the Community Shield, Manchester City used Benjamin Mendy going forward as high as he could, and they shifted to a back three with Kyle Walker moving across. Here, they didn't do that. They wanted Walker and Mendy to get forward. Why was this different? Well, last season, we saw the wider players try to break in behind, try to get forward, but because Mendy was injured, because Walker also did play in a central role, we did see the wider area, the fullbacks kind of stay conservative, not looking to push forward as aggressively as Walker and Mendy would. And when we look at Manchester City as a whole, the fact that they were able to do this was wise based on the fact that you have Mkhitaryan out in the wider area, you have Ozil out in the wider areas. They're not renowned for their defensive duties or tracking back, so this made sense. And in the opening 10 to 12 minutes, we saw what Manchester City were trying to do, and we saw three different elements of it. The first one, within the opening stages, you look at the ball from Fernandinho being shifted out wide to Riyad Mahrez. You have Kyle Walker here at half, charging in behind to get the overlap. The cross didn't connect with his teammate, but it showed that Walker was eager to get forward. That was his intent, and he did so on 3 occasions within the opening 10 minutes, which is key. And so that was pivotal. We look at another opportunity where it's from a simple throw-in, Guendouzi comes across, the throw-in is into Aguero. What happens here is the fact that he chests it down to Raheem Sterling, who gets past Guendouzi, cuts in on Mustafi, cuts back out, fires a shot on goal that Cech has to push away, and it shows that Sterling is getting forward. Mendy is operating obviously in a central position, and we can see that Raheem Sterling is trying to get forward, and that's how they're going to get forward in that sense. We look at another opportunity as well where you have the ball shifted out wide to Mahrez, and instead of cutting in, he cuts out wide, tries to get the pull back in. You don't know which way Mahrez is going to go. You don't know if he's going to cut in or out. There he went outwards, delivered the cross in, but again, 3 different ways that Manchester City could get at you in wider areas. That's what they were trying to do. And in around the 12th to 13th minute mark, that's how they ended up scoring the goal. How did that happen? Well, we saw one phase of what was happening down the left-hand side for Manchester City. What was that? Well, you look at as a whole, they want their center midfielders, shuttlers forward. You have Gundogan and Bernardo Silva occupying those players there. You look at Fernandinho being marked by Aaron Ramsey. So what happens is the fact that Sterling is out wide, you have Mahrez out wide, but Mendy, he tucks into a central position as well. And what happens is that now you have Mendy forcing Ozil into that central position. You have Walker getting forward, Mkhitaryan not really looking to track him as well. But if he does, what happens here is this: wide areas occupied. In the central areas are occupied, the wide areas are vacant. You have 1v1 situations. You have Sterling, who from Mendy gets the ball shifted out to him, cuts in past 2 markers, fires a shot past Cech. That is what Manchester City wanted. Look how congested this space is. The one thing about Bernardo Silva and Gundogan, who got a lot of flack on social media for not really influencing the game, they were able to retain possession. They were able to push it out into wide areas, and that's where they were efficient couldn't. And what happens now is even with Aguero looking to push into that space, look out how many numbers are there. Look at the space in wide areas. Sterling and Mahrez had a field day running at markers. That is what Pep Guardiola wanted. There's one chance in the first half where you see Aguero dropping a bit deeper, clipping the ball out to Mahrez. This is when Lichtsteiner had come on for Maitland-Niles. He cuts in on Maitland-Niles, bends his shot inches wide of the net. He wanted his wider players to get at the Arsenal fullbacks who weren't that great. He wanted his fullback Guardiola to push forward because he knew Ozil and Mkhitaryan wouldn't be able to track them all game, and that's what we saw there. How did they press now Manchester City? Well, that also stopped Arsenal from getting forward. How did they do that? Well, you look at it as a whole, you have Aguero pushing forward, you have Bernardo Silva pushing forward, the wider players tucking in, and then when you look at the shuttlers, basically you have them both stepping forward as well. And now how do you get the ball in? Where do you get it? Even if the City had a very high line, they could push those men forward, and that's how they really stopped them. The difference between Arsenal and Manchester City: one, their center backs are pretty immobile, not the greatest on the ball. Two, their goalkeeper Petr Cech isn't that great with his feet. We saw that in the opening stages. Bernardo Silva pressing Guendouzi. He pushes the ball back to Cech. What happens is Cech ends up almost playing the ball into his own net. That is a big problem. We look at another situation where Bellerin gives away the ball to Gundogan. His final pass isn't good. We look at another situation where it's Gundogan stepping forward and pressing Guendouzi. He ends up playing the ball back, and what happens there is that Aguero picks it up, runs at goal, and Socrates is forced to foul him on the edge of the box, where Mahrez almost scores from a free kick. That is where Manchester City were harming Arsenal from goal kicks, and even when they were trying to play at the back. And even if there was a time where Aguero had to press the keeper, he would ensure that his body position was ahead in the passing lane of the vacant center back so they couldn't play passes into him. City stopped Arsenal from playing forward, and that ensured that one, Aubameyang, Ramsey, and Mkhitaryan and Ozil couldn't really get the ball in advanced areas as much as they wanted to. How did Arsenal press? Well, this was different because based off the fact that, like I said, their center backs, their back line, their midfield are so composed on the ball. They like getting the ball. They're okay with getting the ball in pressure. That changes everything because you have Aubameyang pressing one center back. You have Mkhitaryan pushing forward. What Arsenal didn't want Manchester City to do was get the ball into Fernandinho's feet. So Ramsey stuck tight with him. So that was key for them. What happens here is that the problem was City center backs are good on the ball. They can turn to Ederson. They are very good on the ball. It's not like you're pressing Vincent Kompany who will look to push it out, or Otamendi who, although he's not that bad on the ball, isn't as good as Laporte and John Stones. They were able to push the ball forward. They were able to circulate it into wide areas. And even if they needed Gundogan, Mahrez to drop deep, Sterling, or Bernardo Silva, the midfielders capable of playing one-touch passes to ensure that the ball is quickly cycled away. And if they pushed out to Mahrez, there was one incident where he did get fouled in wider areas, and that's where City were able to bypass Arsenal's pressing with ease because, one, more technically gifted players that are able to play when they're being pressed and get passes in tight spaces, and Arsenal's pressing, although at times it did get them to win the ball back, it didn't force City into many major errors apart from the few Benjamin Mendy lapses that really harmed them, and that was key for Manchester City. When you look at what Arsenal did do right, you have to think that the way that City were pressing, what happened there was that they were able to find space in these areas, more so the right side, and we'll get to that right now. Bernardo Silva out there, wide players out, and what happens here is based that with Mendy tucking in on Ozil, is the fact that there was space in that right side of the pitch. When you look at that, Aubameyang wants to spin into that space. We saw Guendouzi try to push that ball into that space. Laporte tracked him well across. Arsenal's best opportunity in that space stemmed from Ramsey turning his marker very well, charging in, but Fernandinho and Laporte tracked it out. But his pull back into Ozil eventually found Mkhitaryan, but Mkhitaryan couldn't find the final ball. That was the issue with Arsenal as well. Ozil and Mkhitaryan, when they did get into those key areas, they were wasteful with their final pass. However, City did concede some space in central areas, and basically Arsenal exposed it to the left of Fernandinho. There was one situation at the start in the first half where we saw Ozil kind of drift out into that space, pick up the ball, slide it wide to Maitland-Niles. Niles cross to an advanced, well, more of a diagonal cross to the overlapping Bellerin, sees him push the ball past Mendy and able to fire a shot on goal that Ederson pushed away. There was another opportunity that also stemmed down that flank, and what happened was that Bellerin had out the ball. He played it into Mkhitaryan in that space. Mkhitaryan charged forward, plays it to Aubameyang, who bends his effort wide. Arsenal had a few chances, but as a whole, they didn't find enough space to the left of Fernandinho. They did have a few chances, and they couldn't really get Aubameyang, who made some intelligent runs into that space on the ball, and that was an issue. Then we get to the second half. There was a spell where Arsenal did press the City midfield, dispossess Gundogan, dispossess Fernandinho, but their transitional play, they were unable to get that final pass in. There was one that Walker intervened. There was one that Lacazette, the substitute, who did provide that spark, wasted a chance, and then City pounced. It should have ended earlier. Aguero should have scored his 1v1 chance, but again, their second goal down the left-hand side. How does that stem? Well, the first goal we saw Mendy in a central area. This goal, we saw Sterling running at Bellerin, Mendy making the overlapping run. At this point, De Bruyne has already come on as a substitute in central midfield. Bernardo Silva is marked by Lichtsteiner. He just gets the step on him early, the pullback to Bernardo Silva, which was a tough finish, but he finished superbly, and Manchester City from there were able to play the game out and cruise to their first 3 points of the season. But when we break it down, Manchester City won this game in wide areas. They didn't have any answers for the overlapping fullbacks. Both goals came from the left-hand side. Various roles for Mendy, but just showed the tactical flexibility that they have. They exposed the fullbacks. They exposed the fact that Mkhitaryan and Ozil wouldn't track back. Their pressing was much better. They ensured that Arsenal couldn't play out the back. Whereas although Arsenal's pressing was good, City just have more composed players, more technically gifted players, and the plan to play out of the back. And Arsenal's pressing, what we saw today, they should get better against lesser sides, but against this Manchester City side, it just wasn't enough. But let me know what you guys think. Can Manchester City get any better? What do you expect from Arsenal this season? And who will be the key player at the Emirates? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.